Welcome to Drunk on Games, where we
Cheers, drink, chat. We gotta talk about shit. Something like that. I don't know. Oh my God! Sit up.
I'm tired.
We are going to chat about our final thoughts about My City, the legacy game. We just completed all 8 chapters. I believe that is total of
24 games.
24 rounds of drinking, and as you can see, some of us are already wasted.
Feeling it.
Ooh.
That was the game.
It was a game indeed. My brain is fried from overthinking. I'm such a perfectionist. I'm like I just need a...
You are? This game both lent and hated perfectionists.
See, that was the thing. I like to go with the flow with any game. That's why I lose a lot of games. But I still have fun.
Overall,
so that's why I like the game. Oh. Because even though they're like, hey, you like to go with the flow? Don't worry. We're going to give you a handicap to, like, kind of speed you up to, like, catch up to the people who are strategists.
Oh, yeah.
What? Who's...
Strategists.
I mean, that's not me.
Liar.
You spent so many times predicting.
He's just like,
what do we always walk in on you playing on your computer?
Total War games.
Total War strategies and empire building. What is this?
In our Discord. In our Discord, he is General.
General Albert.
General.
Bert.
Yes. But yeah, going on what Golden was saying, that's where we got the hashtag let the drinking do the thinking.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of games.
I really like that.
Oh my gosh.
I'll be fair, my last round was mostly drinking to the thinking. my last chapter followed that idea.
Yep.
Which is partly why I probably lost. In the long run.
To start off our chat about the game, like what our thoughts about it. Let's start by talking about what part of the game that we like what's our favorite, and what do we least like about this game. We could go around in circle, so Albert, go ahead.
I didn't really like how it kept changing the base. So, several times through the game, it gave us a new element, and then it removed that element. So you have the investigator, you have the lumberyard,
You had the wells.
you have the wells, thank you,
You had the gold mines.
and the gold mines.
The gold rush or the mountain.
And
the palace.
so several times we would start planning around this idea, and then suddenly that idea didn't matter anymore.
It'd be really cool if they did, like, you got to choose after a point which one you wanted to start. Then it would change it up so much. It's like, okay, one person's like, okay, I think that the sawmill works better. Mm-hmm. I think that the mine works better. It would sometimes they'd be like, there probably is something where it conflicts, but if they could kind of leave in one more, that would have been nice. Yeah, I agree.
I'd give the 2 cents that, because my opinion is the opposite of that. I didn't like it at first, all right? And honestly, that's because of all of the things they took away, I think the one that they shouldn't have was the well. They should not have took away the well, especially because in the beginning they gave us the wells, which were if you surrounded it with 4 separate buildings, you make points for that. Then they gave everyone who was others extra wells, and then 2 rounds later, or 2 chapters later, took them away, which was like saying, hey, you weren't doing well in the beginning, well, that doesn't matter now again.
Well.
And that was probably the only specific instance where I didn't like them taking something away. Rushing for the gold mines, covering the forest, starting in the corner, the flood keeping us from the other half of the board, all the way up to, of course, ending with the
palaces.
The palace was fine. But I think all of these were perfectly fine. And especially because by then, like the mining, by the time we had the mines, it was pretty well built into our brains that everything goes away in 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Or 2 chapters. And so by then it kind of made enough sense. If you don't push for this, it's not going to stick around. And so even the people who didn't necessarily push for it, like May, finished them before me. And she didn't really push for them in the beginning, but then did by the end. Whereas I spent the entire chapter of those mines building at the mines, only to be built outbuilt by people later.
Personally, I feel like the well makes sense because just like real life, within 2 decades, things change.
They do.
So I can see as the creator's perspective, trying to relate to the real world as well. Personally, I enjoy the changes because I feel like I'm moving along with the evolution of life.
Of a city.
Of a city, and it makes me respect more of the era that we're living in right now, even though it's kind of crazy right now, but it's still, like, history was built and for a good reason. That got kind of deep. But I'd say, yeah, overall, I really enjoy the changes that are happening. It's unique every single time. It's not like the same every round. Personally, what I don't like is how much my brain is fried right now.
It's fried.
I don't know. I don't know what I don't like about this game. I really don't know.
As I was saying, like, I really loved the changes, especially because it kept you on your toes. Every time you thought you had the hang of it, it was different. And not just that, like, you complained about them erasing things, but as I was pointing out, I think the wells were the only ones I was sad about going, and everything else I was fine with, because otherwise you'd focus on too much shit, and that makes it's hard enough to make a good map, and for you to then save everything, make more problems, do more stuff. Oh no, not okay.
I would appreciate if the gold mine like parts were a separate kind of board, because like you said, you can flip it over and play it again, or you can play our custom ones. Well, like I don't like, maybe somebody wants to use your board. I wouldn't want them to see all this stuff.
Right.
I would want that being a separate thing of like, oh, you can start again. That would have been nice, and that's easy to do on paper. I understand for the legacy portion of it, that makes sense, but I would like for the changes to not carry over to the regular game.
Well, again, on the flip side, we've played all of one game on the flip side. Maybe two.
Practice.
As practice games. And on the flip side, you'll notice there is a well. There is the gold mine. Now, the gold mine doesn't give you gold. It's a blunt point, but only for the first person to do it. There's all of the rest of it. What they actually did for this side was they gave you pretty much the boons from the first, like, 3 or 4 rounds, and then none of the detriments. None of that building on forest, none of the flood, none of the gold, or the mining, none of the train tracks made it into this, and neither did the palaces by the end. I don't think you made points for your pieces being next to trees either, but I remember them keeping points per your largest group of each color instead of making the separated blues.
Yeah.
Again, points for the first person to make your gold rush, points if you can cover around your well. So they kept a lot of those beginning aspects. So the backside, if you asked me, was about a half game compared to how ridiculous it got by the end of our game. But again, since they constantly erase things to add the new ones, that half game is probably the best half of things that make sense for a one-off game, and then are done.
What would you do as a player that you could have improved throughout the whole game?
Throughout the whole game?
Wow,
That's a big
through
deal.
the whole game.
Like, if I
It
actually...
could have been good.
So,
God.
like, trust me, I can actually think like a normal person strategist.
Really?
I just choose...
Like a normal person.
I choose not to during board games.
He
That's
doesn't
just-
like to think
that's-
like a normal
That's
person.
literally, like, if you watch me during, like, video games, Twitch channel, Golden Plays Drunk Games, if you watch me during regular games, like, I win, like, these gauntlet games because I strategize of what I'm gonna do next. But when I play board games, I don't like to do that because it's different. I don't do that. So, probably if I was gonna do something different, I would actually play a competitive way of playing this game, whereas the style I did during the Legacy was just whatever, drinking, thinking.
I feel the same way too. Throughout the whole time, I was like trying to understand the game versus being competitive. If I was really in a competitive headspace, I would have been up there with you too. But honestly, yeah, when it comes to like, since we never practice before turning on the camera, like we
No, we
go
just go.
as we go. And if I understand the rules better, the point system better, I would have done so well.
Notice, I was always almost the first to put down a piece.
I did
What
not
is
know
it?
that.
I disagree.
I'm sorry, what is
We're
that
not
motto?
always the first
Not
person.
always. I said almost always.
What was
Most
that
of the
motto?
time. Drinking, thinking.
Something
There
like
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
That's the
Drinking,
drinking to the
thinking.
thinking.
Yeah.
Don't have that. I have asked that.
What would you change, Jonathan?
Or
Head of Game Crackers.
what would you have done to improve
I
your
mean,
gameplay?
I won, so no, just kidding. There was definitely a few like pivotal moments where I lost a lot of points, and not just points, but like end game totals. For example, that last round, if you go back and watch that one specifically, I talked myself out, and other people nudged it too. But I talked myself out of being the first one to reach the bottom using the red by putting a red up here for a park, when I could have put it down here and I would have gotten the red to the bottom the same time as everyone else. And that difference would have made me tie for first right there at the end. So I would have gone from no points to 2 more points because of that one difference. So there's definitely pivotal moments when I definitely misplayed. But I think overall it was fun. I will point out, not something I should improve, but this game was very well balanced. Mm-hmm. As I pointed out, when the mines came up, I was a few points behind someone else here, and I just decided, screw it, I want to do the stupid, more entertaining things. So I decided my whole goal was to build these mines. So the minute the mines were revealed and it became clear that we'd start with the blues, then the reds, then the yellows, I said, okay, game 1, all blue. I want every blue to touch. I didn't care that they got extra points from these specific geared blues. I didn't care about the industry blues. I said, no, I'm going to make all the blues touch so I can make it all the way to the second goal item, get all the first come, first serve stuff, and then game 2, do it again, but do red too. And then the same thing when it came to the yellow, and I was doing worse by then, but again, I got all the early stuff, which actually made me do better at the end because I balanced all my factors and got ahead into train tracks because it was very easy for me to make those last 3 train tracks. And so that got me ahead, and that's the reason why I got all 4 of these, whereas the next best person I think only got 2 of those. And there's a huge difference. So I don't know that I would have changed anything, but I will point out how well that was balanced. I stopped bothering to get in first place and make all those extra points, but they all came back to me from my side goals and helped me win. So it worked out.
I played a very weird game through this because through the game, I'm trying to compete with this guy who took the lead early.
Yes.
Oh.
And I was able to come back during the gold rush,
Yep.
which was I think chapter 5.
Chapter 5 or 6? 6.
3.
The gold rush is 5. Gold rush is
Yeah,
5.
gold rush is 5. So I was able to taking the lead gold rush, but then he managed to catch up to the mines, and so I ended up in this weird conundrum where I was trying to keep up with gold while still trying to maintain points to be able to maintain the lead of first and second through the rest of the games. How I ended up 1 point behind at the end. My biggest regret, honestly, was probably the last couple of chapters where I wasn't able to quite make my reds turn to gardens.
I was going to say, yeah, that last
How many
chapter.
parks did you build?
Not that many.
Yeah.
I
didn't
built 8
any-
of them.
I didn't build
Yeah.
any parks.
Yeah, this is
A huge difference in my points came from building 8 of those.
Besides, like, I'm not saying, like, trees, like, blank spaces, but, sorry.
because you'll see at the first chapter of chapter 8, I was able to get another palace. But I wasn't able to capitalize on that to build extra gardens so that I could make more points at the end goal of, get extra trees, least rocks, etc. I was able to maximize on I was able to keep pace with the golds, but ideally, and this was decided way back when the mines finished, actually. When the mines finished, we were both tied for gold, and there's no way we could keep gold difference. We were both aware of this. As soon as chapter 7 finished, we decided that we were tied for gold.
Pretty much. As long as you could make your trains get far enough. Because I was outpacing you on trains.
And then I caught up.
But you did everything in your power to make sure you caught there. Which inevitably he actually earned more than me. Not necessarily more than me in total, but more than me late game. Which gave him the boon of points there.
Yeah, I was able to beat him on some of the first to, maximize the line or maximize the port route.
Yeah, there's like we bring it up a couple times in the last episode, but like when he caught up in that one, me and May like planned. We're gonna get this railroad first or this port first, and not tell anybody. And then we're like, all right, we got it, and like Albert's like, I got it. And I was like, wait, what?
Both that, the port, and the railroad too.
Jeez.
There were a couple times where I was like, oh, they're planning something. I can get on this.
Just never listen to people when you ask for advice.
No?
Or I would have been there with them.
No, I mean, most serious gamers will give you good advice on how to play their game.
Yeah.
Or
They want competition.
They want people to enjoy their game as much as they do.
I give that advice.
So, now, it doesn't mean they'll give you everything. As each person has their little tricks to maximize their board. This game in particular, it's all about filling their board. But it will give you the leg up from the beginning on how to improve. And always take none of that advice, but keep in mind that they are still trying to win themselves. Everyone wants to be the winner. I do. He did.
Sometimes.
Others.
I won the very first round. I'm already happy with
You
it.
did win the first round.
I got one. Got one win under my belt.
You did win.
I think it's because you guys were not trying to win. You guys were trying to get the side goals, and I was like, maybe I can get one win.
It's my time to shine.
Well, that and they always gave you good boons.
Yeah.
They forced us to have more rocks.
Yeah.
Which weren't necessarily bad.
We had to try really hard late game to maximize the end goal benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Because he really struggled to make sure he had enough trees to equal
Yeah, I came ahead in trees by one.
By one.
by one
And
to
that's
equal Golden.
mostly
Because
because I
Golden
put
had been slowly accumulating trees through the first 4 chapters.
Yeah.
4 chapters, I think.
4 or 5 chapters.
Yeah, he's just been getting free trees all the time.
And so, I mean, you can look at his board over here
I got a lot of
and
trees.
see, I mean, he has
17 trees? 2, 4, 6,
21
8, 9,
trees?
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
17 trees, 18 trees. So you can see how much it became
was.
towards the end. And he had to make those trees
16
to equal me,
I think so.
who had maximized during the gold rush.
16.
Oh, 16, that's right.
6, 7,
And
8,
you
9,
can still hear them
12,
talking through the
13,
math
14,
of it.
15, 16.
That's right, okay.
Yep. All right, next question.
What would you like to change about this game? Or whereas it's like something for the creator to know, or something to change as a team. For example, for the team, I wish we didn't read the rewards for second other players in the beginning, or else that will make me focus like, okay, I'm gonna try to lose, or okay, I'm gonna try to go first, because that really did distracted me. If we just like focus on what we already have, play it, and then be surprised about the reward that we are being given, then that would have been a bit different strategy for me. Other than that, I feel like for the game, like, what if there's another legacy of my city, but this time with animals in it too? Because I'm staring at the green space. I'm like, the animals were here first than the human, and what if there were already animals there and we're just
My
like,
forest.
I was gonna
The new standalone.
to add on to that. I was gonna say either do something like have something interrupting your board, like throwing a dice. You know, I love dice.
God.
They don't like dice. Throwing a dice
That was
like
the card removal.
maybe an alien. Or
An alien.
maybe an animal. Just like, oh, you think you're building something, and then nature or paranormal stuff comes along, and be
Yeah.
like, no, fuck your shit.
To add on to that, I was literally just thinking, like, what if, because the deck is fine and all, but it can be kind of boring after like 24 like rounds of it. What if there's like a card where like an animal invaded this space, E7,
Rat infestation.
and then we would put a token on that square and we had to work around it, something like that, you know?
So, I think a cool thing would be a second standalone yet supplementary legacy game, My Forest, where it's the ideal
Yeah.
opposite, where it's the animals trying to reclaim their forest, and where it's its own standalone 24-episode game. Or you could take your finished board and undo everything about it as nature now. I think that'd be amazing. Oh man.
Yeah, but if you had a legacy, build off another legacy.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Like, take that board you thought you were done
And so
with.
we've gone through this whole effort to build my city, but now the squirrels attack,
But you're playing as the squirrels.
and suddenly all the trees get planted, but you can't cover the trees because there's been a recent, motivation to make sure all the trees are grown.
The squirrels have discovered replicators that just replicate their acorns.
I think an interesting few other tidbits. All right, no, go ahead. Do yours first.
Literally, when it comes to when you first introduced us My City, I thought we're actually building like a city, but we're starting from like green land and building the industry of it. But I was thinking like legit another set of Legacy of My City where we start from like a rural area and build like an urban metropolis.
Yeah, I think that was chapter 15, right?
Barely.
Isn't that what you were
I don't
announcing
know.
earlier?
I didn't see any crops anywhere. I don't know how they got all this money for building more towns, or if there's some rich investor before the investor. But all I saw were buildings being built. I don't know what type of buildings they are. Maybe you had a little bit. To it.
Actually, yeah, the tiles. But
We saw chapels. We saw churches. But did we see anything else?
Hospital.
Do we know which ones were hospitals?
Right.
I liked the exception that it was, a more rural from nothing being built up, and it made a lot of sense. Okay, build your well. Oh, you found gold. Now you need some of the right rocks to build this. Oh, you finally made it up to the industrial era, and you got train tracks, and like there was definitely a lot of room of how a facility would be built up. I think thematically the major problem there was the fact that you were starting from scratch each round with the few extra bits, so it was almost as if you wiped out the whole town except for that one improvement and then tried again every time. And that's a little awkward in life.
Where you just keep getting attacked by Thanos. You're like, fuck, I gotta build over. But we kind of remember a little bit.
Like that Thanos guy.
You know what I think would be an interesting addition, or next chapter, if anything, would be like a dice or something. And you put a couple of cards in about this, right? Because this is how I would do it. But I'd do it as either cards in there or cards that trigger this, that then the next one flipped is put upside down.
Why?
Because there was so few things put the other direction, and half the time we were building perfectly based on exactly what direction things were. What if there was a couple more cards in there
Almost
about
like
the fact
if
that
it-
the next card,
Almost
the next
like
tile
if it
is
gave,
flipped?
if it gave points for something, it gave like half points for something.
Like that could be interesting. And so like it would flip those specific things. And like on the back you'd have a couple of like stickers of what it was or some other basic stuff
I
to
see
prove
that.
what it was, but not necessarily like, because that would be the next big thing that I could see a change in there was, oh, you thought you were comfortable with all these pieces? What, because don't get me wrong,
think,
that was
comfortable with the pieces.
Yeah.
and that was the thing that I felt I appreciated was they gave us new pieces, they gave us
Oh, yeah.
required pieces, they gave us our own unique required piece.
They
Then
gave
they
us,
started to
hey,
let us customize our pieces. Then they started to let us to
skip
get rid of
some
those.
pieces.
Then they started to skip some pieces. Yeah, there was a lot of things around changing those pieces.
Notice in the
And
that
videos
made a
we
huge
were
difference.
like, please skip this piece. Please skip this piece.
Oh man, there was a lot of that
I
going
do,
on.
I do appreciate those changes, but after a while it does get comfortable. Albert, any thoughts about changing?
Sorry, I'm still on the side of the board trying to make a perfect square of the pieces I have remaining. Speaking of which, of the pieces you have left, other parts I would change. John mentioned this before of how it would bring in this new aspect and then it would remove it later, and that's unfortunate because you get used to this new aspect and you start making points from it, and then suddenly no longer matters, and it's regrettable because you take these lessons learned from all the previous games you played. And sure, it would bring in these new elements that were great. It had the port, it had the sawmill, all of those were very interesting and loved how they changed how we would make Because you can look back at Chapter 7 where we're like, all right, let's build from the sawmill. Oh, we all built in the same place from the first piece. But then later, sawmill no longer exists. And so it's like, it'd be great to keep those around, but they're not.
Well, good news for you. That's the other side of the board.
Sawmill?
Yeah. Now, with the general play of the board, it doesn't include that.
Doesn't include the sawmill.
So many forests, though.
There's so much forest.
You don't get to cover them.
So much forest.
Did you like Forest and Legacy? He gave me more.
What is everyone's overall thoughts of the Legacy game?
Good.
Yep.
This is a starter game, but I honestly, if somebody was like new to board games, new to
Legacy?
board games, you know what I'm saying? Like, not like I played Monopoly, I played Sorry. Like, these are like, I want to get into something new with a little bit more strategy and a little more thinking. This
I'm
is
so
one
happy.
I could convince people to get into.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, all right, well, okay, you're just putting pieces in. They would get it and not complain like, this is too complicated. I could definitely get them into this game. I like it.
Yeah, which also answered the last question for everyone. Would you recommend it to friends?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would totally tell people to grab this. This
Even
one of my favorite Legacy games now.
Even just on its own, you have this great board to try to outplan everyone else. Doesn't mean your plan's going to succeed. As we saw throughout our Legacy edition,
Oh, yeah.
several of us would place tiles and figure out, and then suddenly
Nope.
that piece is no longer there.
Or it comes up at the wrong time. How
Or
much
it
did
comes
that
at the
happen?
wrong time.
It's too early! No! Rearrange. Fuck!
Them damn churches!
Oh, dude, churches.
Church.
Churches took him out of like 3 different rounds.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then, like, I had to watch where, like, the next piece I needed came up, and I'm like,
Yeah, overall, even though it gave me so many headaches, I overall enjoy this game. It is definitely around my alley where puzzle strategy, and it's cute. It's something I can see where we can sit around, drink coffee or whatever, and play the game.
Drink coffee.
Yeah, coffee.
Yeah,
I know.
We can focus
Drink.
more, yeah.
to quote,
something.
no, he says tea, but to almost quote Thor, I don't drink coffee.
I also do appreciate how random this game is. It's not based on luck. It's just based on the randomness of the card that can be played. And some luck too. How lucky
A
you are.
little bit
with
of luck,
with
but for the
some
most
spaces.
part, you're
I
very
definitely
right.
got lucky.
But yeah, definitely would recommend to
Yeah.
friends and play with them.
Albert, Mr. Puzzle Boy.
And this concludes our video where we choose, drink, and chat. Thank you for tuning in. And if you watch the whole entire Legacy game, we appreciate you.
We love
very,
you.
very much.
Comment below because we want to know who made it all the way here.
Yes. Please remark on
How remarkable that is.
Or unremarkable.
on if you think this is even worth the time of us doing it, or or if you think we should just move on and play a different game because we have shelves of games to play.
I might give you $1. Might.
He might. I'm not going to.
Which makes a point. Leave down in the comment, like, which Legacy do you want us to start playing?
What do you want us to play next?
There's so many.
We're done with this. What's up?
Thank you again for being our viewers. Like our video, subscribe to our channel, help us get our YouTube channel off the ground, and always remember to drink responsibly because
We
won't.